I was looking into the report, May 2017 report from the Wellesley Institute looked at diversity, aging, and intersectionality in Ontario home care. We know that home care is going to be an increasingly important part of the seniors' care metrics. So as we know that in centers like Toronto, minority seniors accounting for an increasing portion of the senior population. I represent one of the Toronto ridings. And in Toronto, according to this report, Toronto experienced 131% increase in the number of visible minority seniors between 2006 and 2011. Yeah. So for Canada, it was 31%. Overall, but specifically for Toronto, it was 131%. So yet the report found minority seniors have cultural, language, and other barriers to accessing publicly funded home care. They were less likely to access publicly funded home care, more likely to rely on private care or family, and more likely to have unmet home care needs. Are we doing what we need to do in order to address the intersectionality needs in the senior care delivery? What do we need to be doing that we are not doing? So, Ms. Gillis, maybe you would like to start?
I'm happy to start with that, and you may want to start with that. I think you have put your finger on a big problem, and I think there's a couple of issues that we need to unpack within the comments you've made. First of all, getting the information out and unpacking the availability of the public system for people who are not accessing it. And I think there's lots of history in different government programs where there are programs to go out and actually find those people and bring them in so that they're getting access to it. GIS and OAS is one example. Right now, the HRSDC is looking at innovative ways to access people who aren't getting at GIS and OAS. And so there are models, and I think we should be thinking about that for the folks you're talking about, particularly if there's 131% not getting access in Toronto. That's just crazy. Second of all, that's an area where we really need to look at funding, and we really need to look at how the system works, so that it covers people's needs. So I think research needs to be done on that, and I also think we need to start looking at better programming. So that's my 2 cents worth. Did you want to add anything more?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Ms. Zahid. This is such an important question. So let me just take it one notch above where you started. Every single person in this world needs 3 things to have a good quality of life. We need a good place to live. We need something useful, purposeful to do, and someone to love. Okay. If we don't have one of those 3 things, our quality of life suffers. I think there's lots of models in this world that do better than Canada. Japan has a really good model for community care. Even the United Kingdom amongst the Western world actually has some good models where especially minority groups are served better. I think and just building on what Margie just said, we do need to look at those and improve our system of social housing and supports in the community closer to home. Thank you.
Ms. Scott, would you like to add?
I was listening to that, and I grew up in not outside of the GTA, and it is so true that in our large urban centers, I mean, we are really facing a home care crisis, and partly it's aging, but I think, the extraordinary diversity, certainly of the GTA community, is putting pressures on a system that simply has not been designed or is adequately equipped to deal with the need, either providing support to all diversity families in their homes or, providing institutional support. I mean, it's interesting that in terms of response, actually the beds, it's been in, home care or nursing homes, for instance, are actually even arguably less accessible today with the rising pressures on them than they were even 20 years ago. We have not kept pace. I think investments here are critical because certainly women's unpaid labor is drawn upon. Caregivers are on the front lines of this crisis. They suffer their own health. That's certainly been my experience in my family. And, to do nothing is to continue to exploit the labor of women. This is a very concrete black and white example of where failures of public supports and certainly imagination and visions leaves families across the country hanging. And it's acute in communities where institutionally or historically there have not been services to serve those communities that reflect cultural needs or their languages, particularly in senior care. you know, there's going to be a period of catch-up, but I mean, it's, you know, putting our head in the sand is simply not the answer here. We have to really make a commitment to understanding the role of public supports and services to families as they go through this transition to do it and try to enhance the quality of life of seniors. I think Canada has, as Kieran was saying, has fallen back and is behind. This is complicated by the federal provincial jurisdiction. Obviously, home care and many of these supports clearly are in the provincial domain. But, you know, certainly we have transfers here from the federal government. Yes, okay, we're wrapping up. Okay. I completely agree.
Thank you so much. We're now going to move over to